What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Daniel Cormier reacts to Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. This week, massive news surfaced that Islam Makhachev would be defending his lightweight title against Charles Oliveira in Abu Dhabi at UFC 294. The news came on the heels of the former champion stating during International Fight Week that he was not ready to compete in October and would instead be looking to fight in November or December. With Alexander Volkanovski fresh off arm surgery, there were calls for Makhachev to defend his title against the #1 contender rather than jump right back into a champion versus champion showdown, with the UFC seemingly of the same mindset. After the news surfaced, Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier, who trains with Makhachev at American Kickboxing Academy, weighed in on the situation in a video for his YouTube channel, pointing out that Oliveira didn't get dropped in his last fight with Beneil Dariush.
He was able to really control the fight, how it went, and he ended up dominating Beneil Dariush. That was the best Charles Oliveira. So when you look at that Charles Oliveira and you match him up with Islam again, you start to wonder, is this version the version that can compete against the champion?
Considering how dominant Oliveira looked throughout his fight with Dariush, the potential for the rematch with Makhachev to be more competitive has fans engaged in heated debates. After the fight was finalized, Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is not expected to be in Makhachev's corner for the fight, wrote about the rematch on Instagram. 93 days until the fight, you can't take your foot off the gas. Just go ahead, brother. Considering the fact that the fight is set to take place in Abu Dhabi, it wouldn't be surprising to see Nurmagomedov in the audience supporting his longtime friend and teammate. According to the opening odds relayed by Verdict MMA, Makhachev has opened as a strong -350 favorite, given how the first fight played out. On the flip side, Oliveira is entering the fight as a +295 underdog. For his part, Du Bronx has owned up to the fact that he simply wasn't there in the pair's first fight, giving many hope that he can beat the odds. When the two collide on October 21st, who do you think will wind up leaving Abu Dhabi as the champion? Will Islam Makhachev once again prove that his reign is not ending anytime soon, or will Charles Oliveira overcome the odds and capture UFC gold? Drop your predictions in the comment section down below. Israel Adesanya reveals next UFC fight. Israel Adesanya wasn't too happy to find out that Dricus du Plessis will be unable to compete at UFC 293 in Sydney. The last stylebender took to social media with a video message calling out the #1 contender for being unwilling to compete and also naming the next man up for a crack at the title.
Your foot sore. My knee was jacked too from my last fight. Guess what I did? I showed up because that's what a champion does. Championship caliber, built different. Dickless to pussy, dickless. You're out. Strickland, you're in. Let's do the man dance. Show you how to really dance.
After news surfaced, Strickland was quick to speak with longtime MMA insider Helen Yee about the status of the fight, revealing that he's in talks with the UFC to compete in September against Adesanya. However, he has one stipulation. He wants more money.
No, I mean we're in talks. You know, we're in talks. Like I said, it just comes down to just pay me. You know, and the thing, guys, let me ask you guys: do we really want to watch Dricus and Izzy fight? No, we don't want to watch Dricus and Izzy fight. You want to watch me fight. Am I gonna win? I don't know, but I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna punch that Chinese motherfucker right in the face.
Considering the heated verbal back and forth between the two back at the UFC 276 press conference in June of last year, the build-up to a fight between Adesanya and Strickland is guaranteed to produce fireworks. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love, and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Michael Chandler responds to Conor McGregor's comments. In the most recent episode of The Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor avoided a sweep, prompting the Irish star to run around the octagon and celebrate. After the fight, he criticized Chandler's fighters for failing to finish fights, alleging that staying in close guard over 2 rounds was not a full fight. After continuing to take jabs at the former UFC fighters trying to earn their way back into the promotion, Chandler reacted to McGregor's comments during his post-fight tough reaction show on YouTube, criticizing the Notorious One for taking things too far.
You know, and rightfully so. Conor's pumped up, you know, and so this is one of the things, you know, closed guard after 2 rounds isn't a fight. There was a lot of unfinished fights. So basically it was a stab at us for not fighting hard enough. Look at him, dude. He's about ready to jump over.
There's a lot of unfinished fights here.
He's too.
Although there's been plenty of controversy regarding McGregor's return to the octagon, his longtime manager, Adi Attar, has indicated that the former two-division champion will play by the rules in regards to his re-entry into the USADA testing pool, while speaking with MMA Junkie.
Listen, one of the things everybody forgets, Conor McGregor was the most tested athlete when he was competing, and we're going about things the right way. We're in active discussions with the UFC. We've spoken to USADA. We're going to do things the right way.
Given that USADA wants 6 months of testing, McGregor's return wouldn't be possible until after the start of the new year. Stay tuned for updates as they become available. Colby Covington update. Chael Sonnen may have been spot on when he said that the UFC should add a welterweight title fight between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington to the UFC 295 card in November. According to the welterweight #1 contender, who appeared on Sonnen's YouTube channel, he and Leon Rocky Edwards will collide at Madison Square Garden.
You know, they got to stack that card. They can't depend on John Jones, and you know better than anyone. He's unreliable. He's unprofessional. He could get popped for steroids. He could do a glass of tequila and some booger sugar up his nose, and he might be beating his wife and in jail again. So who better than to have his insurance policy than Colby Chaos Covington, the guy that just so happens to...
Should he and Jones wind up competing on the card together, things could wind up getting pretty heated between the two men. With Leon Edwards recently saying that he was targeting a return in October, it sounds as though a fight in November could wind up being finalized by the UFC sooner rather than later. If the fight winds up being made official, who do you think ends up leaving New York with the welterweight title? Drop your predictions in the comment section below. 3 fighters removed from UFC's active roster. News surfaced this week that 3 fighters had been removed from the UFC's active roster. The automated Twitter account UFC Roster Watch caught the changes in the promotion's fighter database, reporting that Robbie Lawler, Blagoy Ivanov, and Damir Ismagulov have all been removed from the UFC's roster. In the case of Robbie Lawler, the former champion and recent Hall of Fame inductee rode off into the sunset with a highlight reel knockout of Nico Price at UFC 290, confirming his retirement after the win. Blagoy Ivanov either fought out his UFC contract or was released from his contract amid a 2-fight skid that saw him go just 1-4 in his last 5. While he could re-sign in the future, the UFC may not decide to pursue negotiations. Last but certainly not least, Damir Ismagulov, who had previously attempted to retire after suffering his first career loss to Arman Tsarukyan back in late 2022, is now a free agent. With 1 fight left on his contract, he recently decided to return to the octagon, where he dropped a unanimous decision to Grant Dawson. Now, with his contract fulfilled, Ismagulov seems poised to either hang up the gloves or compete in Absolute Championship Akhmat, as some have theorized. Sean O'Malley on Paddy Pimblett next UFC fight. Although Paddy Pimblett is eager to return to the octagon before the end of the year after undergoing ankle surgery following his bout with Jared Gordon, Sugar Sean O'Malley believes that he needs to be built up before taking a fight against an opponent like Drew Dober. During a recent episode of The Bro Malley Show, the bantamweight #1 contender and his brother fielded questions from fans. When the recent callouts from Drew Dober were mentioned, O'Malley gave his thoughts on the baddie's return.
You can't give Paddy Drew Dober coming off this surgery. You got to let Paddy build up. Yeah, it's hard to say who do you give Paddy. Paddy versus Jakar, our buddy Jakar would be a sweet fight. I know Matt Frevola has been trying to get that fight forever.
I don't think you
could almost give Terrence McKinney. I know he's coming off two losses, right? And he's bigger name.
Although Pimblett has been back in the gym sparring and training, there's been no word from the UFC regarding who they would like to match him up against and when they would like him to fight. Who do you want to see Pimblett fight when he does return? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And now for a breaking news story of the day.
We have the MMA community going off on a UFC reporter. Earlier today, a UFC reporter asked Paddy Pimblett a pretty bizarre question about him and Molly McCann's relationship. He asked if they had ever shagged, which Paddy replied saying that she likes females and doesn't get with males, and that he's married.
My question is, have you and Molly shagged?
You do know Molly's a lesbian, lad, yeah?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Molly's a lesbian, she's got a fiance, lad, and I'm married, so.
Yeah, thank you so much, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Here's what some fans had to say on Twitter about the situation. Bro wasted a question on that. It's just bad for the sport. It gives more leeway to just have a bunch of yes men asking easy questions rather than giving the fans a voice. When an internet troll tries his hand at public speaking for the first time,
what do you think of the situation? Let us know in the comments below.